I do want to very briefly mention something that's kind of overblown, which is the John Morrison snub from the night after WrestleMania 27. You're the Tough Enough trainer, you come back, you have this match, and he's kind of got an issue, I guess, with WWE really, that, a spot's being taken. Yeah. That's got to be a tough spot for you to be in. Pardon the pun, Tough Enough.
That's what you did there.
Because you're kind of in the middle almost of this situation, and it's not really.
I was in the middle. Snooki was on one side and he was on the other, and I got snuffed in the middle. It was. I mean, it did get blown up. I mean, people were like, "Oh, I remember that moment," and it was like headlines. It was like a big deal, but it wasn't cool. So it was deserving those headlines. But he just was like felt whatever he felt, which was like you're taking a spot from someone. Who knows who? I don't know who he was referring to. Somebody, anybody.
I can't think of it.
Right? But we did serve a purpose there. We were there because, and I was very clear with saying, let's be honest, I'm not taking anybody's spot. They gave me the spot because we have a show that's a television WWE property that is airing after WrestleMania. It's called Tough Enough. I'm on it. They're promoting it. That's their way. That's how they've chosen to promote it. That's all. I'm just here to work, man. But I said, well, what you've done ultimately, if you've taken away a moment from the fans, by just personally feeling like this, it doesn't matter what John thinks about Trish. It's John Morrison and Trish Stratus got to team up, and they are victorious at this, it was actually on Raw in the rematch the next night. And we were victorious, like, yeah, let's celebrate. And fans were excited about these two characters coming together. It's always neat when two characters that you would never think would cross paths do. And so he just took away that moment from the fans. So that's kind of dumb. Why would you do that? That's what we do. Our moments are for the fans, right? So, that was that. And I told him what's what, and we're totally fine now, by the way.
You came back and did the Royal Rumble in 2018, first Women's Royal Rumble, which is epic, and then you faced Charlotte. You proved you can still go with the current generation, but that wasn't enough. You wanted to come back and do
more, we need more.
What made you, after those things, still want to come back and do a proper, full-blown, run?
It wasn't that I wanted to. It just, the opportunity kind of presented itself, and like it's not that I get an itch or anything. I'm like, I need to go back. It's just that, I went back and did some live events that were in Toronto. I was hosting them, and Becky and I got the chance to do a few things, but then we engaged on like a Twitter war to like whatever, it's just a live event, but we're like, let's have some fun online. But people were really digging it, and suddenly you were hearing about, oh man, that would be a fantasy match. I was like, I've done tons of panels, and no one really ever said like, I'd love to see you face Becky Lynch. It just never really came up. I'd heard everyone from, of course, Sasha Banks was a big one, but like, various people, but and then people saw the appeal of that match and the generational face-off of each other, and that'd be pretty cool. And so I guess after that gave us a little taste, and we enjoyed working with each other. So we were like, that would be cool. Becky and I bonded when she became pregnant, and I did the like, hey mama, how you feeling? And then we just bonded over that, and then having the birth and being mommies and talking mommy stuff, and so then we got to the point where I remember thinking, so I'd been asked, would you go back here and there? And I kind of said, yeah, I'm kind of like, I feel like I've done the babyface comeback, like, yay, and, tail off Elias and move on. And it's fun for those novelty moments. They're fun. But, I don't want to wear out my welcome, first of all. And I said, if I go back, I'd like to surprise people, too, and do it a little different. And then I thought, as a performer, I would like to challenge myself and do something, do a heel run, because I hadn't touched that for so many years. I think it was 18 years or something. I think when I did that promo, it was like 18 years since I did a heel promo, So yeah, and I guess Becky was heel for the longest time, and then she, one of those organic changes again, but she got injured, came back organically. They changed her baby face, the crowd made her baby face because she was back, and she's the best. She really is. And then I was like, there's our moment. And she called me and said, do you want to come back and do a match with me at WrestleMania? And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, we could do this. And then we were like, how can we get to me turning heel? And then we brought in Lita. We thought it'd be cool if like me turning on Lita is like, you're more invested on me turning on my friend of 20 years than me and Becky had no television history at that point. So yeah, and then I was supposed to come in for a little bit after WrestleMania, turn heel, do a little something, and then suddenly I was in a storyline every single week for the next 6 months. We were not expecting that, but that's what happened.
During that time, obviously Triple H was in charge. You've worked under Vince on creative. You've worked under Triple H. What are the big differences? Because people don't really know yet because it's quite new. What have you noticed as the differences between them being at the helm of creative?
Helms. The
Helmsley.
The difference. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think as a mature talent, one that's been around for a long time, the creative process for me was quite the same. Like, it was sort of about pitching the ideas, speaking about what we thought, and I was able to execute sort of the timeline that I thought it would be great. I knew that I wanted to deliver, and we were all on the same page with things. With Vince, I was on the same page with Vince storyline wise, except for that he didn't want me to come back because he wanted me to be. He just thinks he was like babyface. They're never gonna boo you, and I'm like, yeah, they are. Yeah. So I think the process sort of seemed the same. There was a little bit of the changing of the guard happen where you're like, wait, who do we talk to? Who do you talk to? That was a bit of a confusing time. But besides that, it's about how you handle your business, I guess, in a way. Like, I just, you talk to your writers, you figure out the storyline, you actually find it the best way to execute it. And I found that it was pretty seamless for me.
Fans were obviously very up in arms about you guys not being on SummerSlam, which, was just because you didn't want to have a regular 8-minute match. Mm-hmm. You had this cage match.
Yes.
Match of the year contender. People were talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't really go any better. What do you take away from that experience?
Oh my gosh, it was everything. It meant so much to me because number one, it was the culmination of the storyline, and we felt like it needed that cage match. We were granted the cage match and granted the time to do it. And I just felt like no one got injured, and fans were super into it. It was just like it was so good. But for me, like looking back, like I was never able to do these things. So like me coming back and able to like check off some bucket list stuff it meant a lot. And obviously the cage match was something that you can pull interviews. I'm sure you've seen interviews from before. I'm like, I don't know, I'd like to go back and do a cage match, throwing it out there so like, haphazardly, but turns out, hey, dreams do come true, kids.
People always ask you, would you ever go back and do anything else? You've had this kind of perfect heel run. In your brain, do you feel fulfilled that is it, or is there a part of your brain that still thinks there's something more to do?
I feel like I always feel fulfilled when I feel like I did what I wanted to do. We tied the bow, and it feels like it got a neat little bow, and it was a good little package. We did that, But I always say, it's like it really is creative. It's creative and storyline dependent, and the product changes so rapidly, and it's so fluid. Like you never know what could be the next storyline or what the proposed idea could be. So I always stay open, and I say so. There's a number. If I say open because if it's something really cool, or like I can elevate someone, or like I didn't expect Zoe Stark to be introduced. That wasn't part of our initial plan. When Hunter brought her on board, I was like, oh, I love it. And I was looking at him like, I see the Batista Triple H vibes, that could be something down the line. And we're like, yeah, for sure. But I loved that I could work with someone one-on-one and like, just give back a little bit of the stuff that I learned. And she was so good to like just take in everything, ask questions. I mean, she was like from like outfits to like moves to like words. Like, I remember one time I was at the cottage, and she had a promo. I stayed on the phone with her for 2 hours working on a promo, just to, I felt like a great responsibility, and I enjoyed that, working with her in that regard. And so I say, like, you never know what they'd propose. I'm always open-minded to, as long as it's fun, something interesting, elevating someone, all these little things. And ultimately, as long as I can give 100%, like I'm never going to come back and be like, believe me, when I went back, I'm like, let me watch this. I don't want to give them like 60%, but like, here's a cool 60 for you guys. Enjoy. I know it's not quite the same as before. I couldn't do that. If I can go back and do at the top level, then I'll do it. But otherwise, I'm not. If I can't do it at 100%, I probably won't do it at all. But so far, it's been working out swimmingly.